Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about the latest Venom film from the Sony Spider-Verse franchise, which is Venom: The Last Dance. This is the third and what supposedly might be the final Venom film for Sony's Spider-Verse franchise. They don't quite have all the Spider-Man rights back since Marvel's kind of making stuff with Tom Holland still and everything like that, but they're able to do Spider-Man villain-related stories in the meantime until they eventually get the Spider-Man rights back for films. But in this movie, though, you guys, in Venom: The Last Dance, it is after, of course, after the events of the first two films. We find Eddie Brock in Mexico, and while he's there, there's a news report saying that Eddie Brock is on the loose. If any residents or officials see him, report him to the police right away, based off the events of the first two films. And so Venom suggests to Eddie, since there's still symbiote human host combined, why don't we leave Mexico? Clearly, if there's reports going on here, there's reports going on everywhere in the U.S. Let's figure out a new plan. So Eddie Brock has a old colleague of his in New York, and so Eddie and Venom try to work their way there. But while they're on their way there, there's these new symbiote hunters that are on the loose now, and they're the most active when something called a codex happens, which is essentially a human and its symbiote virus combining together in their full form, their completed full form. And that's dangerous because it can track them down right away. It can kill them right away. These creatures are intended to kill symbiote creatures. So it's very dangerous for Eddie and Venom to use their full powers at this point. And so on their way to New York, obviously things don't work out. There's this new symbiote hunter that's out now. They end up in the Nevada desert, and they have to figure out how to get rid of these symbiote hunters while also making themselves safe. And while all this is happening, Area 51 is also searching for Eddie and Venom because they want to research them. And all this is happening over the course of Venom: The Last Dance. There's a bunch of conflicts that occur, and Eddie and Venom have to figure out, is this really our last dance? Can we really make this work still? How can we stop these symbiote hunters from tracking us down all the time? Area 51 is on us now, so how are we going to resolve that? So all this happens over the course of Venom: The Last Dance. But overall, guys, this new Venom film was just okay to me. I thought overall it was entertaining. It was fine. There wasn't anything offensive about it or anything. But at the same time, it was kind of a mediocre movie, if I'm being honest with you. There were some negatives along the way here. There's certainly some things that were perfectly fine with it. But there's just enough negatives along the way where I don't know if I could necessarily send you to a theater to see this one. But there are some positives about it where if you'd like the first two Venom films, and if you really want to see Tom Hardy play this character a third time, there's enough here to enjoy that you won't be massively disappointed. But at the same time, there's nothing about it where I have to immediately send you to a theater to see it or anything. So for my positives and negatives for Venom 3, I thought the overall Codex Fuse conflict that Eddie and Venom face, the whole thing where if their powers are combined, if they go Venom full form, Venom completed form, I do like that conflict of, if they do that, they run the risk of symbiote hunters tracking them down very quickly. So I like how throughout the film they have to figure out how can Eddie Brock still be Eddie and Venom still be Venom without them having to always combine with each other the way we saw them do in the first two films quite often. So I like that conflict of let's resolve the issue, let's still be ourselves, but at the same time, let's not go full Venom until we know for sure that we're kind of in a safe zone and in a place where symbiote hunters would have a hard time tracking us down and stuff like that. So I do like this idea of Eddie and Venom having to be really careful with their powers, because if they're not, they can bring more trouble than good if they decide to go full on Venom like they would normally do. I also overlike the bromance that Eddie and Venom continue to have throughout this franchise. I thought Venom 2 kind of had that at its best. I thought when Andy Serkis directed the second film, who unfortunately did not direct this one, but when he did that second film, I thought their bromance was at their best. And it continues that for the most part here. Their friendship, their bond, all of that continues. So I like how they really do continue on with their chemistry overall as characters, and it was fun seeing them kind of doing back and forth with that. Because I do think Tom Hardy himself does voice Venom himself, so I think he does voice, Venom, and he also plays Eddie Brock, obviously. So it's great to see their bromance continue in a film like this. And overall, it was some really cool symbiote action scenes. A lot of them happens all the way out in the third act, but there is some symbiote action related scenes that are pretty cool to watch. There's other kind of like Venom and Spider-Man related symbiote characters that show up in this that I can't get into spoilers on. But if you are really into kind of the symbiote characters, obviously Carnage was in the second film, so they're not going to use him again. Um, but it was just cool to see other symbiotes show up here, and they show up in some really cool action scenes in the third act of this film. So it was really cool to see that happen in this film in particular. And I thought that aspect of the story was very well handled. I also thought how the action scenes were very well in camera. Nothing was shaky cam. For the most part, you do get to kind of see everything happening that's going on in camera. So I thought that aspect of the action scenes were pretty well handled for the most part in this film. So if you like the symbiote characters, a lot of them get some pretty cool action scenes in the third act of this film. So if you're looking for that in a Venom film, I think they deliver for the most part. I also thought Eddie and Venom being on the run for most of the film and for being on all these outdoor locations like the Nevada desert and Area 51 and all this other stuff, I thought that was also pretty cool too. I liked how they kind of limited their indoor use as far as where Eddie and Venom are in indoor locations. So I do like how they're on the run, dealing with nature, dealing with people that are out in Area 51 exploring it and stuff like that. So it was cool to see them kind of have a more of a fugitive angle to the story. They really are on the run for most of the movie. They're trying to outrun Area 51 and these symbiote hunters and stuff like that. So I thought that aspect of the story was also very well handled. But for my negatives of Venom 3, there's unfortunately some very cringy dialogue in this movie. There's even a scene where these Area 51 employees are trying to figure out the symbiotes, and like one of them says something like, Kubrick would be really ashamed of all these 2001 references we're making or something, and it just felt very bad. It felt like someone in post production was listening to some of the clips and be like, we got to do something to try to spice this up, and it just felt a little desperate to me. It's just like, there's so many things they just could have done to just do a good story and a good script, and all they do is go back on like 2001 A Space Odyssey references and stuff like that. So some of the dialogue was pretty cringy to me, so I thought that aspect of the story was pretty disappointing. There's also some spotty CGI throughout the film. A lot of the stuff that's not like the Venom visuals, like the scenes where Eddie turns into Venom or something. Like there's scenes where like the symbiote hunters are out in daylight and like they don't have any kind of a shadow or anything like that. So there's like certain aspects of the rendering of some of the visuals that don't look completed. Certain shots to some of the visual creatures like don't feel like they match up with the environment that they're in. So I thought that aspect of the story was a little disappointing. Yeah, so I thought outside the Venom visuals, a lot of the other visuals just felt pretty disappointing for the most part. And for the most part too, this franchise feels really tired. It really does feel like it's kind of ran its course. There's no more big ideas for them to explore. They've brought Carnage in already. They've brought other symbiote characters in already. So I can kind of see why they went with the whole Last Dance angle. I think it's time to end Venom. I think it's time to explore other characters, explore other things. Venom has 3 films now, so if you have 3 different stories to choose from, if you're ever in the mood for a Venom movie. So I think it's time to end Venom. I think it just feels a little tired at this point, and yeah, let's just end this franchise. And then my other negative too is kind of going off the Venom comment thing, the franchise comment at least. I think Sony just needs to end this whole Spider-Verse thing. I know they're trying to make money while Marvel still has the rights, and they're still doing the Tom Holland stuff, and they're currently working on a 4th Tom Holland Spider-Man film, and I know we have that Kraven the Hunter on the way and stuff, but for the most part, I just haven't been super happy with this Spider-Verse that Sony's been doing on their own. I think some of these villainous characters work the best when Spider-Man's actually in the story with them, when we see the duality of good and evil, and I think that's kind of where Venom's best qualities as a character shows up, is seeing just how different he is from Spider-Man. So once again, just like the Venom franchise comment, I think it's time to wrap up the Sony Spider-Verse. I know we have Beyond the Spider-Verse in the animation realm and stuff like that too coming up, but I would just say finish what you have left, but let's not announce any new stuff. Let's kind of wrap this up. I think most people are pretty disappointed with it for the most part, and focus on something different. Focus on other, Marvel stuff that Sony's going to let you, that Sony has permission to do. And once the rights go back to Sony, then you can try Spider-Man stuff again. I think that's totally fine. And then for my last comment regarding Venom 3, regarding the negatives, there's just a lot of really dragged out moments in this movie. There's just a lot of scenes where some of the clips feel like they don't know where to end. Like one scene in particular that almost kind of got on my nerves was Eddie Brock gets a ride with this hippie family because he's trying to outrun the Area 51 people and stuff. And in the car, they're trying to get him in like a better spirit. So Rhys Ifans, who's in the film, he plays like the hippie father. He's trying to play this song with him in their van, and you literally see the whole song play out with the family. And I think they're trying to make the point that Eddie and Venom are uncomfortable being with this family, but they really could have just trimmed the scene down. I think just making the point that Eddie was uncomfortable, maybe have a little bit of the song, not the whole thing. And getting the point out there and then just move right on to the next scene. I think they really needed that. And there's just a bunch of other scenes too that feel like that. It feels like it doesn't know when to end something. And as a result, it just feels super dragged out in certain areas. But overall, I'm going to give Venom: The Last Dance a 7.5 out of 10. There's certain things about it that are fine. There's certain things about it that are not offensive. Obviously the Codex Fuse conflict I think was the most interesting part of this film. And obviously some of the symbiote action scenes are kind of cool too, but for the most part, there's a lot of negative stuff along the way. There's just enough problems here where I don't think I could send you to a theater necessarily to see this, but if you like the first two Venom films, and if you find it on streaming, a couple months down the road, it's not the worst thing you could watch. But for the most part, I thought it was just okay. It's going to get a 7.5 out of 10 for me, like I said. So if you do decide to see Venom: The Last Dance, do see it with caution. There's just enough fine things about it that it's not bad, but there's just enough problems with it too where I can't necessarily send you out to a theater to see it either. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. Venom: The Last Dance is an okay film.